Hi friends. So it's about 10:30 in the evening right now, and I tried to record this video earlier, but I was just too mad, so we're trying it again. If you could pass this along to Amy and Steve and Garrett, I would really appreciate that. I am essentially here today to talk about the experience that I had during the breakdown of our relationship between Garrett and I, and just wanted to share some of the horrible things that they did to me, because I know there's a lot of dirt being thrown around on my name, and it's just not the truth. So here it goes. So I wanted to start with a story that was just really the first red flag that I noticed when I started dating Garrett. He would brag to his family and his friends and really just everyone around him how good of a manipulator and a liar he was. And I remember that giving me a little bit of pause, just right near at the beginning of our relationship, and just being kind of like, that's like a weird flex, but okay. I really liked him, so I kind of just pushed those feelings down and went for it. I just really liked him, and I really wanted him to like me, so that was kind of one of the first things that I noticed and didn't like. I knew it was a red flag, but I didn't want to like admit it because I just wanted to date him. So fast forward to us living in Tennessee, and his parents are paying our rent, which was super sweet of them. But this was during COVID, so there was just a lot of prices fluctuating and things like that. So we ended up having to move, and that was really when things started to go downhill. This is about 2 years into our 5-year relationship, and he made me give my car up that I had bought, on a loan. He made me get rid of my car. And we moved to an apartment that his parents wanted us to move into that we couldn't afford, but his parents forced us to. I was really nervous about that, but we did it anyway, and that was really when things started to change a lot for me, mostly because he just started to get really distant and cold. And I realized that he was stressed out and everything like that, trying to pay for our rent, which was so sweet of him. Or so I thought. I thought that he was doing it from a place of love. I really didn't realize that it was causing so much resentment to be built up in our relationship. So, yeah. So we're in our apartment that we can't afford, that his parents forced us to move into. And I will say that even his parents were so controlling to the point that his dad tried to tell us how we needed to arrange our living room furniture. And I started to just feel really unsafe because I felt like no one was protecting me, and I was kind of just going along with what everyone else wanted. I didn't really stand up for myself or anything like that because it was like they were paying for my rent, so I didn't really have a say. During this time, I start to get really frustrated because I try to leave Garrett about 3 times while we're living in this apartment, and he's down on his knees begging for me to stay and crying, just sobbing. And I ended up staying, even though I really shouldn't have. My anxiety starts to get really bad. And to preface this, I have an abusive, both of my parents were emotionally and physically abusive to me in my childhood. So I had PTSD. It was undiagnosed at that time, and when I was just like really anxious and having panic attacks every day, that's when I really started to seek therapy and medication. So I decide that I'm the problem. The reason that I'm unhappy is because of me, because of my past and because of my trauma. You know, things were okay, but I wasn't happy. I wanted to move back home to Colorado. I didn't really enjoy the culture in Knoxville a ton. So I was just getting more and more depressed and anxious and all of these things. I'm working part-time. I'm going to school. He's not asking me to pay rent or anything like that, but it becomes overwhelming for him. We shouldn't have moved somewhere that someone was forcing us into, and somewhere we couldn't afford. So we end up moving into a smaller place, and when I mean small, it was $950 a month, and it was 350 square feet of like living area. So it was tiny, and I was really sad when I first saw it, but like, again, he was paying my rent and he wanted to save money for our future, or so he told me. So I agreed to it. I'm sorry, this makes me really sad. So he's begging me to stay, and I'm listening. I start talking to my therapist about some of the things that I'm noticing because we're fighting more and more, and I don't know what to do. I didn't really ever do like much. I stayed home and I went to work. That's like literally all I ever did. Garrett cut me off from, I have a really good group of guy friends back home, and Garrett was just starting to become more and more controlling. The first sign was me getting rid of my car when we moved to our expensive apartment. So I didn't have a car for about 3 years, because he said we couldn't afford it, but that kind of confused me because I was paying for it and he wasn't asking me to pay rent. So that was all just very confusing. And then the emotional abuse really started to pick up speed once I started talking to my therapist. I think Garrett sensed a little bit. Or maybe it was a self-fulfilling prophecy, because he didn't want me to go to therapy, because he said that immediately the only reaction that he had was that she was going to tell me to leave him. And I remember being very confused by that back then. I'm not so much anymore, because I can recognize the signs of emotional abuse. And so he would gaslight me, try to make me think that he like didn't say things that he literally said like 30 seconds ago in a fight. He would constantly text me throughout the day. And the worst part of it is that I don't think he asked a single question about me in about 4 years of our relationship. I don't think that he actually cared about me. I think he just thought I was pretty. So it started to get really bad when I was talking to my therapist. And then I got a little worried because he had said that. So I was like, oh my God, maybe he's right. Maybe therapists are really manipulative. Not realizing that my therapist was actually trying to save me from what I just went through. I really wish that I had listened to her, but fast forward again, we're now living in our apartment, in our studio apartment. I'm like painting and like refinishing the tile and like just making it a home, because he was also like sad and felt like he had failed. So I did everything I could. I painted a mural on the wall of like mountains, because we both loved mountains. I just made that place a haven for both of us. And I am going to therapy, and I purposefully have not been bringing up Garrett, because I was raised in the IBLP cult. And so there's a big culture, a big misogynistic culture around not talking about your husband to anyone. My mom wouldn't let me talk about my relationship issues to her. It was always this culture of just being very hush-hush about like issues with your man. So I'm like not reaching out to my friends. I'm not telling my mom anything. And I'm barely even telling my therapist anything about the way that Garrett started treating me. During I would say the last 2 years were the roughest. There were things here and there before that, but the last 2 years were really rough. For me especially. So essentially, Garrett took 3 or 4 trips a year. He would vacation all the time, just be enjoying things, but then complaining about the way that I spent my money. He would buy himself toys, new mountain bikes, new mountain biking gear, a motorcycle he bought for himself. But if I got my nails done, then I was being irresponsible, and I needed to start being better with my money. He started to get really angry that I was only making $15 an hour, and he told me I needed to be making more so I could contribute to the household more. And before this, I was just very confused because he started asking me to pay rent. But part of the agreement that we made when we moved 3,000 miles away from my hometown was that I would be taken care of, essentially. And so that kind of came off as a shock to me, that he just out of the blue was going to require me to start paying rent. So I'm wanting to leave. I'm still wanting to leave, even on medication, and I'm still telling him this. He's still begging me to stay. Moving on from that, Garrett's unhappy with how much money he's making and with how much money I'm making. And he essentially tells me I need to leave my job at the Hyatt place because I'm only making $15 an hour, and I need to be contributing to the household more and making more. So we're fighting every single day. I threatened to leave. Then I'm unemployed for a little while, or just like, in between employed, where I'm just like waiting tables, and like I worked at a boutique hotel part-time as well after that. And then he asks me to marry him, which I thought meant that he wanted to marry me. It's interesting. And things really start to go downhill from there, really badly. He starts to get really cruel, actually. I am working a job, and I end up landing a really great job in sales, which I loved. And I was so happy to like be working in sales and just having a 9-to-5 and things like that. So I'm working and he's working, and he graduates and gets a job working overnight. And this is when things get really, really cruel. Before that, it was really just, he would be very grumpy, just like after work and things, and just stay up all night playing video games and yelling really loudly and not letting me sleep. He just didn't really care about me. He kind of just cared what I could contribute. And I will say that I wasn't always perfect, but I grew up in an IBLP cult, which basically taught me how to be a housewife, and I like kept our house running so well. He really liked that. I think that was one of the only things he liked about me, to be honest with you, was just that I would wait on him like that. And I cooked dinner every night, and I cleaned, and I did his laundry, and, all of the stupid things that we tell our daughters not to do, but we end up doing in love. I'm like 100% taking care of him. He is taking trips with his friends consistently. Even though he says that he's worried about money, never invites me on a vacation, a single time. If it was to see his parents for Christmas, we would go, but that's the only vacation I've taken in the last 5 years. Because he just wanted me to stay at home. He didn't want any men in my phone, so the only men were my dad and my brothers, and so I couldn't talk to anyone. And an example of the cruelty that I was starting to experience in that last year was really that I waved to a male coworker who I used to work with outside of the Hyatt place. He was a valet, and so he was just like parking cars, and I saw him out there, and as we drove past, I just gave him like a little wave, and Garrett grabbed my arm and like pulled me back into my car seat and got so angry. He was livid that I had waved to a male who wasn't him. So I am basically just being little Betty Crocker, taking care of my mans, working really hard, and then I also decided to go back to school. It's been a long time dream of mine, and he knew that it was, but he wanted to finish school first, and he told me that we shouldn't both be in school at the same time, and that I should just wait until we get married to pursue my education. So not only was he controlling my, who I saw, who I talked to, who I, went out with or anything, he was also controlling, my transportation in general, because he forced me to get rid of my car, and it was so isolating and so lonely, and I was so sad, just by the cruelty that I was experiencing every single day. And then he would just stay up all night and keep me up all night and laugh online with his friends. He would barely even say hi to me during the day. So it was very strange that he asked me to marry him, and then kind of just emotionally checked out after that. there had been issues in our relationship before with the coercive control and the, prioritizing his needs above my own. I'm sorry, this is really hard for me to talk about. So I land this sales job that I absolutely love. I am just dialing phones all day. I love talking to people, and I'm just generally like so happy. And this is an interesting part of our breakdown, because the second that I was doing well, the second that I was happy, the second that I bought a car, and I was starting to build things for myself, Garrett got really pissed, just really angry that he wasn't going to be in control 100% of the time. And so, long story short, I get very physically sick. I'm not sure still what it was. The classic American healthcare system just told me my labs came back fine and, nothing was wrong with me. So I think that Garrett took that as I was faking being sick. I'm not sure, honestly, how he took it. He didn't really talk to me about it, but it started to make me really sad, because I was getting sicker and sicker every day. My hair started falling out. I was gaining weight really quickly. My teeth were decaying really fast. I was just so stressed. And my body was just deteriorating because of the cruel and just evil things that Garrett would say to me during fights. And he really made me feel crazy. My mom and him drove me to have a psychosis episode. So I'm just getting sicker and sicker. I don't know what's wrong with my body. Garrett's fighting with me every single day, even though I can't really get out of bed. I'm calling off of work because I'm so tired. Garrett's telling me I'm not doing enough. He's telling me that I need to get out of bed and go on a hike, and all of this while my body is literally, I'm suffering. And anyone who knows me knows that I love being outside, and I love running and hiking, and things like that. And he must have thought he was the only one in the world who got depressed when they couldn't go outside, because I literally stayed inside of that house for months. I didn't see friends. I was so sick. I was so just ready to end things, with Garrett, mostly. One of the most hurtful things during that time was that Garrett didn't even bring me like a cup of tea or ibuprofen to take. Even if I asked for it, honestly, he would just ignore me and go back to playing his video games. It was very isolating, and it was very sad, and it was very emotionally manipulative and abusive. And my therapist told me multiple times to leave him. But because he had said, like, all therapists tell you to leave your partners, I didn't really believe her that, like, he was abusing me, and, it was just so confusing, because emotional abuse, even though I had been through it in my childhood, is so much more confusing than physical abuse. Yeah. So I'm laying in bed sick every single day, and Garrett is not being helpful in any way. He doesn't offer me comfort or love or anything. He, in fact, ignored me more so than he supported me. He would come home from work or get off of work at bike flights and just start playing video games with his friends and just be cackling as loud as he could be while I was trying to sleep. And he knew I had work the next day, and he would have just finished yelling at me for not doing the dishes or some shit. And then I would be up all night because he would just be screaming on video games with his little friends. And it was so sad how hard I was working for that man. I was planning his wedding. I was, he said we couldn't afford a wedding planner. We ended up getting a day of coordinator like a month before or like 2 months before. But I had done most of the work, and I don't really understand now why he even asked me, if he really hated me that much, that if I wasn't earning an income, that he just wanted to fucking leave me. It's very sad. So my pain is getting worse. I can't go outside because, my body is just deteriorating. I'm not sure why. Looking back on it, I think it was all of the emotional abuse and, just him putting himself above everyone. So I get really sick and I'm depressed, and we're fighting every single day. And in one particularly bad fight, Garrett kicked me in the back and bruised my spine. I couldn't walk the next day. I was already in so much physical pain, and instead of offering care and support, he decided to kick me in the back, literally. And so I was just exhausted. So I asked him to carry me down to lay in the grass. He couldn't even lift me. I'm 150 pounds, so I don't know. Maybe it was that much weight gain, but I don't think so. He let me lean on him, and I kind of hobbled down to like a grassy field so I could at least just lay out in the sun because I was just so depressed. And then things start to get really bad. I couldn't afford to refill my meds because I had paid for a contract for a wedding vendor. And I just completely forgot to cover all of my bases, and so I didn't get medication that month, and I started to have really severe withdrawal symptoms because I was already in this anxious and depressed place. I have my car at this point, which he was angry about me buying, but I can't drive myself, and I call an Uber to go to the emergency room, and I'm calling him, and he basically says, I don't care. I am at work, and I can't leave. Why do you need me there? And at this point, there had already been several things, besides being very proud about being a liar and a manipulator. There were several times where I felt unsafe during sex. There were several times where he was cruel during sex, cruel during, just daily activities, where he would just throw his head back and roll his eyes at me, like I was just the worst thing that he had ever seen in his entire life. And it started to get just worse and worse as it went on. So he ends up showing up at the emergency room, and I was surprised. He was very annoyed that he was there, and he was very frustrated that I had even called him at work at his very important job, because his needs always came before mine. And so he was kind of rolling his eyes and throwing his head back that he even had to be around me. And so I'm laying in the hospital bed, and again, I get a CT scan or an MRI. I think it was a CT scan. And they don't find anything again. My side is like on fire. I'm having like digestion issues. My hair is falling out. I thought it was an issue with my thyroid because I was depressed and I was gaining weight. It was all Garrett. 100%. It was all him. I am shocked that I allowed myself to just kind of go with the flow and go along with things. And the whole time, he was just being cruel. And that's kind of what upsets me the most about him saying that he can't talk to me on the phone because of his safety, because he's a cruel man and he's a very dangerous person, and laid his hands on me multiple times. So despite all of this cruelty that's going on, I'm still starting my business. I am going to school and I am working full time. And, Garrett's angry that I'm getting my own form of transportation. And really gaining just like footing and freedom from him. I was so alone. He didn't talk to me for about a month once. He would like come home from work, give me a kiss, and then just kind of do his thing. He never really asked how I was doing or really anything about me. I have a lot of stories in my past, and he never asked about a single one of them. He didn't want to know about me. So I have to work. He's up playing video games. We're fighting every day. And then eventually my boss starts to catch wind of what's going on, because I look like shit. I look fantastic now. But back then my face was completely puffy. I was gaining weight. My hair was falling out. Like, I just looked so bad. I had bags under my eyes because Garrett wouldn't let me sleep, because he was just being so selfish and just being as loud as he possibly could to try to keep me awake. So my boss kind of catches wind of these things, and I end up calling him after Garrett had laid his hands on me, and I told him what had happened, and he said that it's absolutely unacceptable for a man to lay his hands on a woman no matter what. And I took his card, and that was very gracious of him to give me the company's card to go book a hotel room for myself, because like I said, my parents were my biggest abusers, so I don't really go to them for things. While I'm staying in this hotel room, I'm kind of thinking, like, it'll just be like a little blip in our relationship. It will be fine. I still love him. He still loves me. Everything's fine. And I'm just ordering DoorDash and just thinking that we live in a really small apartment and we just need some space. So, after this hotel stay, I go back home, and Garrett is furious. He is so angry that I would even tell someone anything about our relationship. you know, he would tell me consistently to keep my opinions to myself and stay quiet and, you know, be a good little submissive girl and not cause rifts or do anything, really do anything, honestly, other than just fuck him and fold his clothes. So, I went home and we had a huge fight, and I ended up moving out a lot of my stuff into my car. And I decided I was going to go stay at an Airbnb for the week because I was just sick of it. So I went with my dog, and I went to stay in an Airbnb. And I had been trying to heal my mom and I's relationship for like years. I really believed that she could change. She is borderline and sociopathic, and really just wanted the worst for me. And I didn't see that now, but now I do. So I've been trying to heal my relationship with my mom for the past 5 years that Garrett and I have been dating, because we really didn't talk a lot when I left home when I was 18. So I called my mom against my better judgment because I really just wanted my mom to be there for me. And before this, I had called his mom, Amy, and I had tried to express some concerns about how stressed he was, how I didn't share many details, but I just was telling her, like, he is stressed. And I don't know what to do, essentially. I was kind of seeking counsel from her. And I had no idea that she would stab me in the back the way that she did. But, while I'm staying in the Airbnb, I call my mom, and she essentially, you know, I told you, she's still in the cult. She's still an IBLP believer. So she essentially tells me that what's wrong in our relationship is me. My boss is also in some form of religious, very fundamentalist religion, and he tells me the same thing. And I am just starting to lose my mind a little bit. I am being pushed towards psychosis more and more every single day because everyone around me is telling me that I'm not being good enough to Garrett, and I literally don't leave the house other than to work. I don't talk to people in my phone. I don't go on social media. Literally, my entire life was dedicated to taking care of Garrett at this point, because I thought, you know, we're getting married, and so that's apparently what a good wife is supposed to do. And so my mom tells me it's me. My boss tells me it's me. My therapist is telling me to fucking run. She's been telling me to run for about 3 years that I was seeing her. That all of Garrett's toxicity and manipulation was the problem. And I didn't believe her, but I really should have. So coming from my mom and from my boss, that was very difficult and very isolating, and I was very confused because I was the one being kicked out when, you know, Garrett said he had no problem caring for me even after we broke up. If it really came down to that, he would move out and he wouldn't, you know, do anything to hurt me in that way. But he did. He drove me to have a mental breakdown. I came back from the Airbnb one night because I didn't really like the shower there, and I wanted to just take a shower at home. So I come out of the shower, and there's no towels anywhere to be seen, because, while I was gone, he hadn't been doing any laundry or anything like that because I did everything for him all the time. So I scream for Garrett and I say, "Hey, Garrett, can you bring me a towel?" I'm screaming from the bathroom, like asking him to bring me a towel. And then he doesn't answer me. And I come out of the shower naked, dripping wet, feeling very vulnerable. And this man, as he had been treating me for about the past 3 months, he looks at me and just looks back at his computer. It doesn't say anything. So we're fighting and things are escalating and it ends up being a physical altercation, and I started it. I don't have trouble admitting that. I just wanted to check to see if there was even a human being left inside of the shell of the person who I once knew. He just ignored me. He didn't want anything to do with me. So at that point, I kind of knew that it was over. I didn't really want to admit it, but he ends up leaving. And so I decided to take my dog and take my stuff, which I had packed a little while ago. And I went and sat in a parking lot. And again, I should have known better than to call my mom, because she is incredibly misogynistic and basically told me that this was all my fault and I was not being good enough. And that was the message that I was being fed from everyone around me, except for my therapist and my friends. My girlfriend told me to leave him about 3 years in. And every girlfriend, in fact, told me that he was toxic and controlling and manipulative and a liar. And I didn't believe them. So I call my mom and I tell her that I'm still in physical pain. I'm still depressed. I'm still stressed about my wedding. I'm stressed about running my business, who I had an employee at. I'm stressed about going to school. I'm stressed about paying for everything, because everything was very separated between Garrett and I's finances, because he did not give at all. He got my nails done once in our relationship, which is nice, I guess. But most of the time it was gift cards for my birthday and just very unoriginal things. So it was really the bare minimum effort. Yeah. I don't know why I put up with it. I really wanted to leave multiple times and I didn't. And that was my mistake. But I call my mom and I'm in the car with my dog and I tell her that there's a bottle of hydroxyzine next to me, which I know if I take the entire thing, it will kill me. I don't want to be around anymore, because Garrett has been so cruel to me leading up to this. He's physically hurt me when I was already in physical pain. I was emotionally just a wreck. I just did not want to be around anymore. And the thought that he might leave me really scared me. So I just wanted to end my life. And I am so sad that my mom and my ex-fiance drove me to have a psychosis where I was suicidal. I just wanted to put it out there that I am 100% off of my medication now, and I am way happier, and I actually graduated from therapy, and I don't have to go anymore. And I do get anxious still sometimes, but I am doing so much better now that I don't have someone in my ear telling me how much of a whore I am, how much of a bitch I am, and all just for waving at a coworker, So my mom tells me, you should call the police and you need to check yourself into a mental hospital. At the time, I thought that she was doing that for my protection. Looking back now, I realize it was both her control issues as well as Garrett's control issues. So I called the police. I didn't take any pills. I just wanted to. I call the police. They come. I explain to them what's happening. I explain how horrible Garrett's been to me. I explain just everything. And I just fall asleep in the ambulance. I'm so tired. Because like I said, Garrett would keep me up all night and then start fights and then keep fighting all night as well. So I was exhausted. I fell asleep in the ambulance, and I woke up the next day in a mental hospital. And I was kind of shocked because they don't really treat you like you're a human being in there. So there was a big glass partition, I guess, and a really tall desk. And the nurses will not acknowledge me. I don't know where I am because I fell asleep and I woke up there. And I don't know where I am. I don't know how long I'm going to be there. I don't know what's going on. I call Garrett. He won't pick up. I call my mom, and she tells me that they are driving to Tennessee, and I assumed that it was to see me. It was not. It was actually to go help Garrett instead of help me. And like I said, they're misogynistic abusers. So my mom goes to help Garrett move all of my things out of my home. And Garrett and my mom take my animals to a animal shelter. And my mom steals my car with all of my belongings in it. I shouldn't say all of my belongings because it was like 10% of my belongings, and they didn't bring everything, and so much of my life has been lost in this situation. So he finally called me back at the hospital. Didn't visit me. Didn't even have the courtesy to break up with me in person. I was alone. I was sad. I was in the hospital. My body still hurt, and the nurses didn't give a crap. And so I get off the phone, and mind you, this is like a wall phone. Like, no one was allowed to have their cell phones or anything. So I'm like on this prison phone, being broken up with in a situation that I can't leave, that he put me in, for fighting with me and for wearing away at my self-esteem and for calling me a bitch and for just all of these things that he consistently did to me that I tried to make him see. He wouldn't let me get my nails done because it was too expensive. He wouldn't let me get a car because it was too expensive. He wouldn't let me do really anything. And then he would take 3 or 4 vacations a year, buy himself new motorcycles, new mountain biking gear, really just being a selfish prick our entire relationship. And I understand now why my therapist was telling him to leave me, or telling me to leave him. So I get broken up with in the mental hospital, which is the most traumatic thing that has ever happened to me. My fiance of 5 years, who I was supposed to marry the following month, just took this opportunity to hand over all of my belongings to my abusers and to essentially just say, fuck you. And he was angry about some things that I had said during a fight. I knew that. But it didn't give him the right to destroy my life the way that he did. And especially when it came to my property and my pets. That was extremely upsetting. Especially growing up in poverty and not having a lot. The amount that I had accumulated during that time was really important to me. and I'm kind of back at square one because he decided he wanted to ruin my life because I had called him a name. So yeah, I turned to my friend in the hospital that I had made, and he told me, like, that's the lowest that I have ever seen anyone go. Breaking up with you in here, that is just the lowest I've ever seen anyone go. So, I get out, and my parents have stolen most of my art. My parents have stolen most of my belongings. I think that they took my Bible. I don't know. I can't find a lot of my things now. My car had mold growing in it from food that my mom had been eating in it and just left. So all of my, about 60% of my belongings were destroyed. Thankfully, my older brother was very sweet and intercepted my things from my parents, because I think everything would have been destroyed had that not been the case. So I get out and I have no clothes. We're not allowed to have bras or underwear or toothpaste or shampoo or anything in the hospital. It was completely unethical. Just cruel the way that I was treated in there, and I really didn't deserve it. I wish that I wouldn't have called them, because I was just saying that I wanted to. I don't think I would have. I like to think that I wouldn't have actually downed the entire bottle, but in that moment I really wanted to. So I get out. I try to call Amy and Steve. They block me instantly. I try to call Garrett. He's already had me blocked, and I'm sure this is the point that he's already been on dating apps and things, because he's a selfish prick. He just is. So my friends start sending me messages like, where are you? And I was basically saying, like, I'm on a plane to Colorado. That was like the condition of me getting out of the mental hospital, was that I would fly home to my family. So that's the deal my parents made with them, and they booked me a flight, booked me an Uber, and then just abandoned me. And this was in May, so the next month we were supposed to be getting married in Denver. Garrett, like I said, destroyed my life. I am very confused why his family is saying that for their safety they have to not talk to me. I really didn't want to share all of this with like just random strangers. I understand that you're all family and everything, but I don't want to share all of the details about the way that I was being completely lied to, manipulated, and abused. But here it is. So, yeah, the last year has been really hard. I had a family member reach out to Garrett, and he wouldn't speak to me. So, shame on you all.